Dr. Jonathan Tripp is joining us in studio this morning from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls, Idaho. And, he's got something today on his mind that's, I think, somewhat seasonal. First of all, welcome back.
Yeah, and welcome to fall.
You've been away a couple of weeks, and the weather changed dramatically.
It did. Yeah, I took away the sunshine or something.
Yes.
No, we went from talking about the fair a couple of weeks ago where we had nice hot weather that was almost worried about dehydration and sunblock to the last couple of days where I feel like I'm back in the Detroit area doing my training.
Yes, in Detroit. Now, that would really be depressing.
Yeah, it's pretty gloomy a lot of the year. So
8:33. Dr. Tripp, of course, joins us. Tripp Family Medicine, located here in Twin Falls, as I pointed out a moment ago. He will share some of the contact information at his office coming up during the course of the next half hour. And, of course, it's top story as well. Bill Colley with you on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. My role really during this half hour is to answer the telephone and
all right.
make sure that
Well, what's the telephone number they should call?
736-0300. We
Awesome.
were just talking during the break about this being, a lot of people love autumn more than any other season, and I'm one of those. And I can remember as a kid, the neighbors, we went to a party in one of their barns, and we could bob for apples, and they had cinnamon donuts and hot apple
Ooh,
cider.
yeah, that's a
And
good memory.
to me, that was what this time of year was always about. And, you think about it this time of year, and you can almost taste and smell all of those things all over again.
Yep, along with wet leaves and all that kind of stuff. Rain on the roof. I had that last night. I opened my window slightly and I could hear it hitting the rain gutter, and I thought that's a perfect sound to go to sleep to.
Your slogan for today is it's harvest season, fall into a better you.
Yep. So welcome to fall, and we're gonna talk about lots of things, but it's gonna be mainly food related. So if any of you don't like food, go ahead and turn off the radio now.
Yes.
But pretty sure that's not the case for most of us. In fact, let me just give you a little background on me. I definitely classify myself among the foodies of the world. I was partially raised by a grandmother that we call Our Lady of Variety, and she actually went through a time where she had very little in the way of food, suffered from malnutrition, and I think as a result, very inspired to have a wide variety of things at every meal, and very quick to share food with anybody she thought even was close to lacking. In fact, if you came to visit her and you weren't as well off as her, she'd send you away with a sack full of canned goods or whatever she had in the pantry. So that's Our Lady of Variety. But for me, variety extends beyond food into different cultures, travel. I'd like to do more of that. Music, wide variety of tastes there. And the four seasons, it's hard for me to say which one's my favorite because I have reasons I like them all. Um, but especially food, when it comes to variety, I'm known at home as the guy that likes the different sauces. So we've gone through several times where we had to clean our pantry out of, expired various types of sauces that were supposed to be added into some meal at some point. But they always look good when I go to the store.
Yeah.
But let me talk about fall in particular. We have awesome produce and variety that's available to us right now. And what a better time than I can't think of a better time to really improve your health. There's times where we don't have great choices on produce, and a lot of that's changed with our, shall we say, world economy and being able to import things from South America where our winter is their summer and vice versa. But especially for us right now, local foods, harvest time, this is a great time for everything from vegetables and legumes and fruits and all that. It is, a time that it's easier to go lighter on the meat. And when we talk about improving your health and weight loss, really trying to reduce our calorie counts, these are great foods that'll help us. And so let me give you a quick story. I have a neighbor who brought us by some tomatoes. We've been you may have heard in a previous story, we spent most of the summer living in a fifth wheel trailer with
Yes.
five adult sized people and two dogs. So we didn't do a garden this year, but he brought by some awesome tomatoes, and we've spent time using them in various things. But my favorite is when you have a good fresh tomato off the vine, is to cut it in thick slices and make a toasted tomato sandwich. And it can be simple, but you get my wife involved, and they get avocado mixed in, and even some basil and a little bit of salt, and maybe a slick of some mayonnaise or Miracle Whip, and boy, I tell you what, takes the bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich and rivals it pretty well without the bacon.
Yeah.
So That's one of my favorites. Another is this morning we had this great Crenshaw melon that, a lot of you may or may not know what a Crenshaw is. A bright yellow, looks almost like an acorn shape, but kind of like a cantaloupe, but a very mellow, super sweet flavor. Um, it's awesome. These are the things that allow me, the guy who likes desserts, to say, I really don't need dessert today, and that's good for my health, good for my weight. And so this fall, there's lots of colors, and we want you to use colors on your plate. We want you to mix it up because it's good for you. So we're going to talk about some of those things. But if you have some favorite fall memories or some foodie items you'd like to bring up, love to hear from you. And go ahead and tell us that number again, Bill.
It's 736-0300. Quickly, we probably should go easy on the pies, but the other part of this year was always the sweet potato pie and the pumpkin pie. And I guess if you don't overdo it, you're probably fine.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to talk about that because I go through my day with recommendations that I give over and over and over. In fact, in writing up our outline for today, I thought I should just use this as a handout at my office. But one of the recommendations I have is cut back to one dessert a day. And most people say, well, I don't even have that. I challenge you to actually pay attention and are you eating more than one dessert type food a day? And if you are, cut back to one. That alone will add up over several weeks to weight loss because those calories, although it's only one, you'll find out you actually were eating more than one a day, at least most Americans.
Got about 20 seconds before the break, and I just want to apologize to telephone callers, some who are trying to get through. What we'll do is we'll take your calls on the other side of the break because it wouldn't be fair if you've got a question that's longer than 15 seconds. We'd have to cut you off, and I don't want to do that. So I appreciate your patience if you can hold for a couple of minutes. Get back in touch with us in the next segment of the program. The doctor is willing to say hello this morning and take your questions or comments too as well. It's 8:39. Dr. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us from Tripp Family Medicine. This is Better Health. Also, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Dr. Jonathan Tripp is in the studio with us until 9 o'clock this morning from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls, located on Fillmore Street across from the main post office. And he's talking a little bit about the autumn season and how you can simply find some of the best harvest foods this time of year to help improve your health. And we have a caller with us. We want to thank Tony. She has been very patient waiting for us during the course of the break. It's 8:43:51. Bill Colley with you as well this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And Tony, welcome to the show.
Good morning. I have a question for the doctor. And I just received a call from my doctor's office, and they received a letter from my insurance company recommending that they change me from omeprazole to ranitidine, I believe it is, for long-term relief from heartburn. Now, I have two questions on this. One, is that a legitimate change of prescription? And two, is that common for an insurance company to recommend to a doctor's office to change the prescription? Or is this something that Obamacare, that we can expect from now on? I've never had my insurance company do this before.
Let me make sure I got the right medicines first. Omeprazole, yes. Changing to cimetidine.
I think they said ranitidine.
Oh, ranitidine.
Yes.
Yeah, with an R.
Yes.
Yeah. Number one, these are both medicines that are supposed to be, that are for reflux or heartburn. Yes. The ranitidine is the older group and therefore much less expensive. Although omeprazole has gone it used to be called Prilosec, has gone generic several years ago, so it is not terribly expensive to them either. But this is super common among insurance companies and much more common now that we have our new healthcare law, that the insurance companies are very involved telling the docs, well, this is actually something we should consider changing unless you, the doctor, have a reason to do one versus the other. So yes, what you're seeing is a change in the healthcare law, and it's all about saving money to the insurance company. It has really rarely anything significant to do with your health, although the insurance companies would argue that some of those changes they recommend are based on recent or more recent studies that say this medicine is old and has a certain risk. In fact, there's one that is common among people with heart disease. They'll be on a medicine called digoxin, and the insurance companies are using a study that's probably only about 2 years old, but still significant, that say, oh, you should change from digoxin to metoprolol. And that one actually is for healthcare purposes because both of those medicines are about the same cost. In your case, it is a step down and may save you some trouble with bone density because omeprazole long term is known to decrease bone density. But overall, I think it's a direct cost savings to the insurance company is the motivation of that letter. And yes, your doctor has to essentially either ignore that or kind of fight back by replying that you've already tried other things and try to get the insurance company to allow you to continue on what you're on. So, yeah,
so my health care no longer is between me and my doctor. It's between my health.
You and your insurance company, and if you're on Medicare, it's between you and the government. So, yes, that is a soapbox that you easily put me on.
So, but how do I research? Do I just research it myself then?
How do you research the medications?
If I want to switch a medication?
Well, one is you go back and visit with the doctor, and that takes time and effort and maybe money on your part. But yes, actually looking at the two and saying, well, what's the difference will make you a more educated patient. And the truth is you might find out that the ranitidine works okay. It's a twice-a-day medicine instead of once a day. It is not as strong. On the other hand, my personal opinion is if the ranitidine works, other than the twice a day, it's actually a little safer. So there is some benefit there as well. But I think this is driven mainly by cost.
Okay, I appreciate your input, Doctor. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Here's a question for you, and her question got me thinking about this since you're talking about this time of year and the foods you can eat. Obviously, a lot of our dietary selections, I mean, I know if I go out and I eat a greasy slice of pizza with a lot of different stuff on top of it, that sometimes I have a need for a Tums or a Maalox or something even stronger. But there are certain times of year when you can get some of the produce you were talking about. It doesn't really bother your tummy at all.
The different types of produce? Well, you're saying the same produce bothers your tummy sometimes a year?
Citrus might, but otherwise, if I buy potatoes or sweet potatoes or try those things, they don't bother me at all.
No, in fact, a lot of it has to do with acid levels. Like people often have trouble with tomatoes, citrus, things that are acidic. But our root vegetables, especially when we talk about things like beets, the sweet potatoes, those are all pretty bland for digestion. So that is true. So sometimes we have to change things up based on our digestion. Now, one thing that just leads me to digestion is a lot of people will have trouble with eating salads, partly because they're not used to it, and there's a change that goes on in your intestines. It makes you gassy, gives you cramps. But I've found a way that for most people works pretty well, and that is these green smoothies or green drinks. And let me tell you a little bit about my experience with that. We moved to Oregon in 2009, and before that, I don't think I'd ever had a green drink, except for my mother, who's a pioneer in green drinks, probably 30 years ago, would try to get us to drink this powdered wheatgrass drink that was just fluorescent green and scary smelling, and like somebody just cut the alfalfa and handed it to you. So my experience early on was pretty negative, but learned to put things together that tasted good. In fact, one of my favorites is a chocolate protein with banana and peanut butter and more spinach than I could eat on a plate, and it makes a morning protein drink that is loaded with more vegetables than I'd probably get in a normal day. That is much more tolerated by sensitive stomachs and intestines because it's so finely ground up by your blender. So if you're going to do that, get a great blender. Spend a little money on the blender because it'll make a big difference. But it's one way to pack a lot of nutrition into one serving. You can get, as my dad would say, more leafy greens than you can shake a stick at. So that's one I would push. And go ahead, you had a question.
Well, yeah, I wanted to mention, of course, you have some recommendations, smoothie being one of them, but you've got a number of things for people to consider this fall with the changes in the season and really some of the options we have when it comes to diet.
Let me also play off of our caller's question. Your insurance company will more and more fight against anything that costs them any money. The single best health recommendation I can give to a person that is a non-smoker is let's lose some weight. So those are what my recommendations are based around, enjoying good foods and losing weight at the same time. If you're a smoker, the number one thing I can get you to do is help you quit smoking. There's nothing that I can do that's better for your health. So if you want to quit smoking, call our office. In fact, shall I give some numbers? Our phone number
Sure.
is 933 4400. That's our telephone, 933 4400. You can also reach us at trippfamilymedicine.com on the web and Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine. So back to how do I get better this fall? Because usually we think, oh, spring is when I want to lose weight, so I look good during the summer. Some of the best time to lose weight is right now because of all the good foods. And so here's some suggestions. Exercise. Do something. I won't get off into a whole exercise program, but if you get 20 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week of what I call huff and puff exercise, where if it's fast walking, you walk fast enough that you kind of have to take a breath in the middle of your sentence to finish it. But if you can't talk while you're exercising, you've done too much. So do something because it does a lot for your mobility, improves joint range of motion. Blood sugars drop all day long, are better controlled if you just get that 20 minutes exercise in. So, and blood sugar plays a big factor in weight gain versus weight loss. So that exercise is key. Let me talk about whole foods. We talked about eating fewer treats. We talked a little bit about green drinks. Whole foods and local foods. Let me push as much as I can on this because if you have something that has no extra additives, no extra preservatives, your body's going to handle it and absorb its nutrition much better. And the fact that you can get something more local rather than at a far distance means it's had less time to lose its nutritional value and probably was picked closer to being mature. We talk about green bananas. Well, they're coming from Ecuador. They're not coming from, southern Idaho. So they have to be picked early. But, your spinach and your carrots and your green beans and your legumes, the legumes can last a long time, but the leafy vegetables, the green stuff, you really want to get that as local as you can because you get the highest nutritional value. And the additives, the preservatives, things that go into processed foods, your body has to fight those. We only put a little bit in to maintain its freshness. That's what our, labels will say, but, a little adds up over time. It's kind of like if you had lead in your water, you wouldn't drink that water without filtering out the lead, So try to minimize what your body's exposed to by eating whole foods. Whole grains, that moves on to not the legumes are separate. They're like our beans, they're our peanuts. Love the variety of legumes. I mean, imagine right now making, a multi-bean or a navy bean soup right now. That's a perfect day for that. Doesn't that fit right in? Some lentils, a good lentil soup with a little bit of carrots and celery and sausage. I'll make you hungry here today.
Yeah, my mouth is watering.
So but the whole grains, whether that's wheat, whether it's I love the variety of rices that we have. I mean, you go to any of our big stores and they have that bulk area that you can get, anywhere from brown rice and the long black wild rice and several colors in between. Do a mix of that. Heat that up like you would white rice. You're going to love it. A little bit of salt. That's about it. And by themselves they're awesome. But put a little bit of like chicken bouillon in as you cook them. Oh my goodness, that's like a casserole without having to add anything else. So that's your rices, your whole grains like wheat, oats, barley. We know that Cheerios will advertise that if you eat oats on a regular basis, you'll decrease your cholesterol by 4%. Well, that's great. If your cholesterol is 200 and you drop it 8 points, that counts. Because you got to eat a lot of Cheerios to do that. But if you're constantly eating whole grains, you're going to lose weight. And if you lose 5% of your weight, so, a person that's 200 pounds, that's 10 pounds, your cholesterol is not going to drop 4%. Your cholesterol is going to drop 10 or 15%, and it's not that much weight. So you don't have to lose the 40 pounds that would make you your ideal weight or the 60 pounds that would make you your ideal weight. Some will get you a long ways in your health. So this is the preaching I do every day in my office. And so these are things that are easy for me to talk about, and they are simple. They're not hardcore. You're not doing a grapefruit diet or the, what was the famous one? It was a tomato-based stew diet, cabbage soup diet. That's what it was. After about 3 meals of cabbage soup, you're done with that diet. And if you stick to it, you will lose weight because you're not going to eat it anyway. So
Yes.
our focus in our office, and my physician assistant Russell is awesome at putting together a true diet plan, calorie watching, a way to track, exercise program, and really helping you monitor that. And so you have some accountability, but you got a lot of help. So our office is good at helping you that way. But what I'm proposing here is really go to your Whole Foods, go to the stuff that you have to actually prepare in your kitchen, because the moment you go to prepared foods, you up the salt, you up the preservatives, you up the sugar, you up the fat. And so, Russell in his talk last week talked about how guidelines for cholesterol have some changes, and one of the changes is our dietary cholesterol, like eggs and shrimp and lobster, where they're high in cholesterol, doesn't seem to have the impact that they thought it did. But saturated fats still do. So if you're eating things with partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, or to most of us known as Crisco or shortening, if that's in there, that's killing you. That if something that stays solid at room temperature probably has trouble not being solid in your arteries. So there's some general philosophy ideas, but we'd love to see you at the office if you want to go after this and make fall really the way to improve your health, whether it's diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. All of those things get better with a little bit of weight loss.
Want to mention Dr. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us today, and coming up on the end of the hour. And just a quick note: you're listening to. There we go. Speaking of the weather change, I can feel it in my throat. News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com, along with Bill Colley, and another hour of the program coming up. In fact, right after the news at 9 o'clock, we're going to talk about sage grouse, which I know is an exciting topic. But in the meantime,
I bet they taste good.
They're big. I mean, they're like a chicken. So probably they're very much similar, I would assume.
Hey, next week our topic will be back to skin stuff. As you've beat on your skin all summer long, we have some great treatments in our office, things that will not only help you feel and look a little younger, but actually be better for your skin. So that's next week.
And your telephone number at the office again?
Is 933-4400.
We've got news coming up in just a minute from the Fox Radio Network. And don't go away. As I say, plenty to talk about coming up in the next hour.